Good morning, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening to the audio version, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this, it's just gone 8 a.m. on Friday morning on the 31st of March. Why so bloody early, James? Well, my missus is disappearing for a spa day for the whole day, and Harry's not too well at the moment. He's absolutely fine, but he's not too well at the moment. So I'm in charge of looking after him throughout the day. So she's leaving about 9:15, hence the very early stream. Let's get straight into the questions, basically. Rob Pick says, morning, James. Oh, Rob's about to give the game away. Right, Mum, Dad, if you're watching, Harry's got chicken pox. He's absolutely fine. Rob says, morning, James. Hope you're less tired than me. Also, hope Harry is doing okay with the pox. Yeah, honestly, he's coping really well. Mum, Dad, the reason we didn't tell you, if people wondering why we didn't tell Mum, Dad, they've been on holiday. They got back last night, and we didn't want to worry him. He's doing great. He's actually coping really, really well with it, but obviously needs attention. He's quite needy at the moment, but he's doing really well. Thank you, Rob. Am I tired? Yes, I'm always tired. Rob says, worked out my rough plan for 29 to 34. It involves going from Rico Henry to Lewis Dunk -4. Either now or closer to 34. Worth doing now. No Brighton defence coverage, and double Brentford defence doesn't feel great. I don't know. I guess key to that, Rob, is I'm going to assume you're free hitting 32. Because if you're not, obviously Henry's going to be far more useful to you in that week than Lewis Dunk. So I'll assume you're intending to free hit 32. I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm going to say no is I think you probably won't use Dunk beyond this week much more heading into 34, and therefore you might make a different decision. I could make that move. I'm not going to. So I think for me it has to be a no. I think Brighton, if I was free hitting this week, I'd definitely have a Brighton defender in there. But you probably won't want to or aren't desperate to use him too much between 30 and 34. And I realise that's the same for Henry. Also, if something happens and you get stuck, like Henry at home to Forest in 34, it's all right. So I'm going to say no, Rob. Roseanne Fleur says, what Millwall need to do to get promoted this time? Well, I'm very tempted, Roseanne, just to say get more bloody points than anybody else. I believe they're 6th in the Championship at the moment. It gets them in the playoff places. Obviously lost at home to Huddersfield in their last game before the international break, which was a big blow. Probably ended any faint hopes they had of finishing in the top 2. So Millwall's season now is about making sure they get in the playoffs and try and win it. James Brennan says, hi James, Shaw and Bruno for Martinelli and Gabriel for -4, or add Iheanacho to Havertz for -8. Bench boost this week. Cheers and have a great weekend. Thank you, mate. You too. Well, look, I've very similar moves in mind for me. At the moment, I only intend to do the -4. We obviously need a Kai Havertz update because he obviously did withdraw from the Germany squad last week. So we need that update today to know if he's okay before you even consider making that move. But my full intention, subject to obviously what the team news is today, is to go Gabriel to Shaw and Saka to Bruno Fernandes from -4. So therefore, I would obviously say, James, yes, go ahead with that plan. But you also need to be on the same plan as me, which includes free hitting in 32. Otherwise, not so keen. Iheanacho, I've decided probably to keep. And the take on that is I'm not sure any other forward is really worth the -4 on this week and next week. My big concern, I think, is I don't think Iheanacho starts at Crystal Palace tomorrow. But he might start against Villa on Tuesday. And that's probably enough for me to think, do I want to take a -4 for another forward? Probably not. Equally, if I'm sitting here this time next week and I think Iheanacho is going to start at home to Bournemouth, I'm pretty gutted that I've removed him. So I'm just going to leave it be for the minute. Make a decision this time next week whether I start him or not in game week 30. And then it's certainly be looking to move on, I think, after that. Unless, obviously, he's back in the team. In which case, he's got a nice run of fixtures, 32 to 34, and might leave it for a little bit. So I just think at the moment, yeah, not enough info. I'm probably accepting that my expectation of his returns this week is probably 3 points. Do I trust another forward enough that's actually going to get me the 8 over this period? What I would say is I think for this week only, I think Havertz is probably the best choice out of that lot. But I'm very unlikely to take Iheanacho out unless Rodgers gives me something today that says, yeah, Daka's first choice forward now. Okay, fine. I really need to think about that. Callum says, am I planning to do a hair transplant with money given by patrons? No, mate. This will shock you, right? But I'm not that bothered about my appearance. In fact, that probably is not going to shock anyone. Listen, I chose to go bald when I was 15. I mean, I didn't choose for my hair to kind of leave me the way it is, but I started going shaved head all over when I was 15. So, yeah, I'm not bothered, mate. Perlo's Pen says, morning, James from Dubai. Thoughts on this -12 for 15 double game weekers? Saka, Gabriel, Odegaard, Kane, 2. Maddison, Bruno, Shaw, Havertz, cash in the bank for Tony to Haaland. I don't hate it. I mean, I guess Kane to Havertz is probably a no, but a little bit like we discussed on Clash the Correspondence, actually, with Gary Robinson, because he was in a similar dilemma about Kane, was like, are you absolutely sure you don't want to captain Harry in game week 31? Because if you think that you might, then the effective extra fixture over Havertz comes back around. Plus, I wouldn't be surprised if Havertz is rotated in 31. So I'm less keen on that than the others. And look, it's worth saying, just because I'm going to take out my Arsenal players and get some doublers doesn't mean that's necessarily what you should do, right? You might be like me in the sense that you want to power into doublers. I justify the decision on going the 2 United players over the 2 Arsenal players, not just on this week, but on game weeks 30, 31, and to be honest, 33 and 34 as well. So I'm very aware that the likes of Saka absolutely could score enough points on Saturday that means Bruno Fernandes will get nowhere near him on Sunday and Wednesday. I'm not an idiot. I realise that can happen. I think -12 is stretching, personally. Gabriel, I'd probably move, because that's a definite you're probably not going to want to use much in forthcoming weeks, I don't think. And Kane, ironically, not that I'm overly hopeful for him on Monday night, he's probably the most difficult one to move there, I think. I'd prefer the -8 and just leave Harry, to be honest. Damien Rosalski says, will you miss Norwich City colours next season in the Premier League? Well, again, I wouldn't rule them out yet. If they have a good little run, they'll get in the playoffs, and it's whoever finishes the season well at that point, isn't it? Will I miss their colours? No, I'll sleep absolutely fine. Do I like it as an away day? Yeah. Yeah, I do like Norwich as an away day, actually. So I would not be fussed if they come back. Damien Rosalski's, that's what we've just done. Rob says, your view on Wilf, Kieran, Traitors finale. Oh my God. I was team Kieran. Wilf was trying to take him out with zero subtlety, and Merrill couldn't have spotted a traitor if Wilf had traitor written on his forehead. I mean, Rob, wasn't this question something you should have thrown in about a month ago, mate? I didn't really have, I'm team this or that, or I kind of wanted him to get away with it, I suppose. But yeah, I wasn't bothered. Tiffy Ferreira says, is there a chance that Leeds and Everton slip in relegation zone after double game with 29? Well, of course there's a chance, mate. I think all of them except, is it Palace and Wolves? In fact, no, anybody could end up in a relegation zone in theory at the end of the weekend. I'm going to say it's 4 points, but it's 4 points from Palace to Southampton, isn't it? So any of those bottom 9 teams could end up in a relegation zone at the end of the weekend. So is there a chance? Yeah. I would say that I don't think either of them will be, though. Bloomer said, are Tottenham ever going to win one trophy in the next 2 years? So ever, and then put in the timeline like 2 years doesn't actually make sense, mate. Probably not. Alfredo says, Southampton, can they survive? Yeah, of course they can. At this stage, I don't think they will. They're going to have to absolutely make the most of the best fixtures they have, such as Palace at home in 31, Bournemouth at home in 33. Can they? Yes. Fixtures look against them, and I didn't see enough at St Mary's in game week 28 to make me think, oh, yeah, I fancy them to survive. Like, I don't. But the vibe around that football club with Ruben Selles is better than it is at certain other clubs at the moment. So I wouldn't rule anybody out at this stage, but my honest opinion would be that I think, unfortunately, this time they may go. Christian Prefer says, can you catch up with Suj? It's already a 43-point gap between you both, or you lose £50 bet with him. Listen, I'm still waiting for my 50 quid from Suj for the last couple of years, so he ain't getting fuck all from me if he beats me. Can I make that up? Yeah, I might make it up this week. It's very unlikely, but it's double game week, mate. And we'll have some different players going into this week. He's going to have 4 single game week players. He might beat me again this week. I'm likely to have 15 doublers. So this is as good as opportunity as any for me to make it up. Can I make up 43 points gap with double game weeks still to come? Yeah, like literally. Saka as a captaincy last week got 36 points. We both captained Saka. But if he'd captained someone who blanked, that's nearly it in one hit, isn't it? So, like, can that points gap be made up to one person? It's more difficult to make, if you said, can you catch all the people that are at X rank, for example, are this amount of points ahead of you? So I think, I want to say it might be about 60 points to top 100k. Like, I've got to catch everybody, right? That's tough. To catch one person, yeah, that can be done. Ian from Melbourne says, what was your first European away game? Was it a good an experience as you'd hoped? Hey, it's one of my favourite ever experiences. Went to Prague in 2008, Valentine's Day, to watch Tottenham at Slavia. And we say Slavia because there was a guy in a club in Prague who just kept shouting Slavia at us, but he bought us champagne, so we let him do it. True story. Yeah, Prague was an incredible place. Freezing cold. Blitz freezing cold. And very, I have to be honest, very alcohol fueled for a good 48 hours or so. But brilliant trip for a first European tour. Prague is a great city. I'd recommend anyone to go. Andre, I don't care about cup competitions, but thanks, mate. Greg Watson says, some big decisions to be made this week, from no hits to minus 12s. How do you go about deciding if a hit is worthwhile? Good question. I don't think I have a science or a logic to, I'm going to take this. I think it's dependent on, I've explained with the Bruno and Shaw one that actually this is where I want to go with the team. And Rob asked one earlier about dunk for Henry, this is where I want to go. Now I think in that case probably less justification, because how bothered are you about Dunk's fixtures 30, 31, you'd probably use him 33 for example. But actually that decision doesn't need to be made now. Whereas when I look at Bruno and Shaw, I think I see Everton at home, I see Forest away, I see me going to free hit in 32, so that doesn't matter. So just over 30, 31, great. 33 over the Arsenal assets. United go to Tottenham, whose season could be on the floor at that point, whereas Arsenal go to City. And then in 34, United got a double, while Arsenal play Chelsea. If I want to go further ahead, then United in 35 go to West Ham, while Arsenal go to Newcastle. And in 36, United have Wolves at home, while Arsenal play Brighton. For me, on where I'm going, United have a better fixture. That's not to say that they'll perform better. They have a better fixture than Arsenal every week after this week. But this week we've got 2 games. So there's every justification for me, I think, to pull the trigger on that. Again, as covered, there's no guarantee that that's going to work out this week. But I certainly think what's to come. If I don't buy those players now, I'll be thinking about the same moves next week. So I'm going to get it done. But I'm justifying it, if you will, not just on this week, over what's to come. Because you have to remember, you can say, right, let's say Saka and Gabriel outscore Fernandes and Shaw this week. Every chance that happens. But obviously making those moves now as well allows me easier to make other moves next week. So when I'm sitting there next week going, fuck, I don't really want to play Gabriel at Anfield, but I've already got the transfer made and I've got Shaw at home to Everton. As long as he's fit and as long as I think he's going to start, I don't have to think about this problem anymore. And as long as Haaland's available, which we don't know that he will be this week at this stage, but he probably will be for next week, I have no issue just buying Haaland should I decide I want to do so next game week, or I fix something else. So I think there's that. We can get hung up too much on these points this week matter too much. I have a plan of where I'm going. I think I need to get these players in. The best three Manchester United for me probably would be Fernandes, Rashford, De Gea, honestly, currently at the moment. But I don't have a goalkeeper issue as it stands. So Shaw is the best alternative for me. And they're probably going to sit in my team now till probably game week 38. Game week 38 is probably dependent on whether they're in Europa League final or not, on what they've done in the Premier League between now and then. So I'm justifying it over a really long period, and I think it pays off. For other ones, sometimes it's very short term, right? So I'd look at the one Havertz for Iheanacho, and I'd look at that and I'd start thinking, with concerns about Chelsea rotation in 31, am I moving that on again quite quickly? So then I have to define that over probably just on 2 weeks. So 29 and 30. And I explained, say, with Iheanacho and went, I'm nervous if he's back in the team for Bournemouth at home. I'll be gutted if I sell him. So there's a psychological impact to that. So some are more shorter-term decisions than longer-term decisions. How often do you hear people say, for 1 week punt? Okay, well, then the decision is to manage it and say, right, I need this player to outscore this player by 5 points or more this week at a minimum, or it's not worth it. So when people ask and say, I want to take -4 for this, I can only answer it as best as I'm asked, but I have to try and think in my mind, is this a short-term or a longer-term move as well? So there isn't a science, though. There isn't a science, but the longer over a period you're looking at something, the more justifiable it often is to get it done. But then you have to factor in the fixtures that are right in front of your face as well. Good question. Lewis Stapleton says, is the designing of the bench boost chip bad this time on a website? Can really make it out easily if a person's bench boosted or not. It's terrible. And people should be very, very careful of it. So what's normally happened is you activate the bench boost chip and your bench becomes a much darker green. All they've done this time is put a kind of a light blue line divider between your team and the bench boost. And if that's there, your bench boost is active. If it's not, then your bench boost is not active. No, it's not very good at all. And I couldn't give you any logical reason of why they've done that. But yeah, those activating bench boosts should be a little bit careful. That I think it's easy to press the button and think it's done. You're definitely going to hear stories of, I activated my bench boost and it's not active. What's happened? That's going to happen to someone this week, no doubt. Probably Suj. Rima Rodri says, name any 2 new type of chips you want FPL to introduce for next season. Look, I get asked this sort of question quite a lot, and I wouldn't overly complicate the game. The general target audience is not us that's kind of, creating content or listening to content most days of the week and stuff. It's for the general public. Let me say the 11 million teams, not 11 million players. So I wouldn't change a huge amount to the game. I think one I have said recently that I think would be quite interesting would be the limitless chip, which essentially means that it would work like a free hit, but you wouldn't be limited by value. You'd still have the limit of 3 players per team, but there's no value restriction, so you could put together a team that costs 150 million, for example. And I think that's a cute idea. And one of the reasons I also think that's quite a cute idea is I think it's simplistic and easy to understand. And also in a game week like this, you wouldn't use it. Honestly, look at what a free hit team you'd put together now. Everybody would afford it. No problem at all. Even if you went Salah, Fernandes, even say if you went a keeper, Kane or Haaland, it's no problem. You work within your budget. I'd not seen anybody put together the idea of what a free hit team would look like this week and go, I can't afford this. A lot of people have got a lot of money in the bank at the moment. So it wouldn't necessarily even be used in a double game week. It might be a week where, I don't know, Tottenham, Manchester United, Manchester City and Liverpool all had really attractive home fixtures and you went, fucking hell, shit, I'd need to get Salah, Haaland, Fernandes, Kane, I need to get them all in for this week. It might be that. So I think that's an interesting one that would create some new debate for the game. It certainly could still be used in conjunction with double game weeks, but it'd probably be dependent on the teams using them in doubles. That would be an interesting one, limitless, but I don't overly recommend any changes to the game. Laxman says, finally, Katie Ann is 44 points above relegation in the Planet FPL Wi-Fi League. Yeah, I forced her to wildcard last week and she did quite well, although I sent her some screenshots of players to go for and she still bought Wilson instead of Isak. I was like, what have you done? So we got to fix a few problems for her. But yeah, we'll fix it. Ian from Melbourne says, your favourite presents from Christmas, birthday as a child, and do you have any siblings and would argue over those presents? I remember getting Emlyn Hughes on the Amiga 500 for a birthday. It probably would have been computer game related or Tottenham related, like away kits and stuff like that. No siblings, so nothing to fight over with people. I've been asked this before, and I can't overly. It's pretty bad. I can't overly remember too much. I remember Paul Gascoigne and Gary Lineker buying me a board game, Road to Wembley. One Christmas. It wasn't actually from Paul Gascoigne and Gary Lineker. It was my mum and dad on a stitch up, wasn't it? But yeah, that one that was always remembered, I think. Frederick Hurt says, is almost any double game week player worth the hit so you can field 15? I got Pope and Rashford flagged and haven't gotten rid of Sanchez. What's your take on them? Well, look, team news today is quite important, but I imagine that Nick Pope and Marcus Rashford will probably be available this week. My intention currently is to captain him. I'm not concerned. He was taking part in light training on Monday. United don't even play till Sunday, so I think the speculation is that Rashford was in need of a break rather than actually had an injury, so he should be fine to go for the weekend. And I don't anticipate any problems for Nick Pope either, to be totally honest. But obviously, listen out for what Eddie Howe says today, although, as Si told us from Clash of Correspondence, he's known to lie. But you wouldn't, right? So, I mean, let me give you an example. Matthias Jensen done really well for Brentford, particularly over the last couple of months, right? Would you take a hit for him for Rashford, with Brentford having Brighton away and Manchester United away? You wouldn't. Would you go to Raya at this stage as a hit for Pope? So, no, Frederick, you definitely cannot say is almost any double game week player worth the hit. No. There's certainly logic if your player is out, confirmed, to do that. So, if you take the example, let's say we find out today that Haaland is definitely ruled out. Well, there's every case to say that a Havertz, an Isak, a Watkins, a player who's likely to start twice, will make the hit back in appearance points. But then you'd have to factor in, there's every chance you'll want to buy Haaland back last week. And also, are you concerned about the value you'll lose if you've owned him since right at the start of the season, for example? And that's everybody's independent decision on that. So, no, you couldn't say he's almost any double game week player worth the hit so you can fill 15. No. Quite often you'll hear me say, it's not the how many, it's the who. The who. So you wouldn't take a hit for Iheanacho now, right? It'd be too indecisive whether he's going to play or not. For a Havertz or an Isak, yeah, sure, maybe, if that's what you fancy. So the who is far more important than the how many. And a reminder that particularly, say, the Arsenal players this week are absolutely fine to keep this week, honestly. Just because I'm selling them, as I already said, doesn't mean that's right for everyone else. Like, Saka, 18 points last week. If he does it again, then it's clearly a mistake to sell him this week, isn't it? And he's capable. Jeremy Mears says, hi James, as this live stream is prime time for us Aussies, I've always wondered, do you get Jim or Jimmy? Yes, a lot. Not so much now, but when I was younger, yeah, absolutely. Probably my main core of friends, or core group of friends, probably from 18 into my early 30s, if I'd ever see them guys, would still call me Jim or Jimmy. Yeah, honestly, I don't think any of them have ever called me James. In fact, a lot of them probably don't even know that my name is James. Genuinely. Jovial says, is Suj back from holiday to do special guest appearance on Game Week 29 deadline stream? No. Suj has never appeared on the deadline stream unless it's been me phoning him to remind him of a deadline, which you never know, I might do tomorrow. So no, Suj is due back 12th of April. So for our Game Week 30 review podcast, he'll probably be back. If not, it's the next day. Sweet Blue says, morning James, I hope you and Harry are doing okay. We'll be picking up a second Brighton midfielder this week. Already have Mitoma. Is there anything between Marsh and McAllister, or just pick one and pray? Yep, pick one and pray. Though I think the timing would say Solly March. It's just purely on March has obviously not been away on the internationals. That's it. And therefore, if I was going in right now, it probably would be Solly March. Yeah, I wouldn't have any concerns about any of the three for minutes going forward, particularly. I think in game you're more likely to lose March or Mitoma to a 75th minute sub or something, but nothing that should be concerning anyway. McAllister could end up in a deeper position, but probably doesn't. That's a little slight against. Brighton could even at some point change to a back three, which could be bad news for both wingers, possibly. That's unlikely. But I think, yeah, if I was buying now, no, probably March. Just because the others have played in internationals would get slight favouritism at this moment in time. He's the one I haven't got. Right? So I made a decision when I wildcarded in 26 or 27, would have been 26, that McAllister was the one I wanted. And then I made a choice the following week between Mitoma and March and went Mitoma. So I don't want that to come as contradictory, but it's just timing wise right now, it would probably be March for this week. I think if I could go back and do it again, I think Mitoma would still definitely be one which you've obviously got. I think it's probably the best one actually at the moment. And I'd possibly still have a little bit of favouritism for McAllister. So again, I know that's contradictory. Just timing wise for this week, slight preference for March. But yeah, in essence, to answer your question, mate, yeah, any of them. As I said a number of times, I'm not keen on people having all three, or even though all three are great options. You are going to want to sell one, I think. Not because you'd want to sell them, but because you will want other players. Lumber says, "Are you how well?" Yeah, I'm how well. Are you how well Arsenal have performed this season? Compare it with Leicester title win in 2016. Can Arsenal win the Premier League? Yeah, if you've been listening to me, Lumber, you'll know that I've probably been saying since about October that I think Arsenal will win the league. So can they? Yeah. Compare it with Leicester's title win. Difficult. I'm always a little bit cautious to not undermine Leicester's achievement in any way because it's one of the great achievements in Premier League history. So it's very difficult to compare. Like, you certainly couldn't compare it in terms of all fairy tale story. Like, it's an amazing achievement for Arsenal because no one would have expected it, particularly in pre-season. If you compared the two teams, this Arsenal team would wipe the floor with that Leicester team, I should imagine. But that's not mean to say it's a better achievement. It's not. It's not. So, yeah, that's a very difficult one to compare the two achievements. I don't think you can ever take anything away from Leicester's. It will obviously be a brilliant achievement for Arsenal if they go on and do it. Holler says, "Morning, James. Take a guess about Haaland availability this week." God. I'm gonna say at this moment, and again we haven't got Guardiola's press conference, so I feel to timestamp this again and say it's 8:30 in the morning, just for anyone who's watching this later in the day or listening later in the day. My instinct at this moment would be doesn't play, and that's just purely on the information that was available yesterday. That information suggested yesterday that he was training away from the rest of the team. Now, if he trains with the team today, he'll play. If he doesn't, I don't think he will. And it's probably that cut and dry, to be honest. So let's see what comes out in training today. My instinct would be that at the moment, it's possibly a little bit more likely no than yes. But it's what comes out in photos, videos, Guardiola's presser today is far more important than my words, mate. Neil Thompson says, "Morning, hope you have a great boys' weekend with wifey away. If Harry is really itching, you need to get him in a bath with porridge, oats, in a sock or tights. It is a fab cure for itching. Peace." Fuck me, Neil. That's a new one. Cheers, mate. Birth Media says, "Hi, James. Saka to Salah instead of Bruno." No, I'm going to go to Bruno. And again, that's the influence of the immediate of what's after. So Liverpool play Arsenal next week, whereas United have got Everton at home. And that's the clincher in the decision for me. Also, Brentford at home for United is better than anything Salah's got this week. So that's the clincher for me. But if you have a preference for Mo, I don't mind it. I certainly can't say that I haven't considered it because I have. but my decision is to go with Fernandes, mate. Atul says, nice seeing you, James. Who is most overrated player at Tottenham and why? Good question. I could make a case for nearly everybody in that squad other than Bentancur. But I will say Romero. There's a lot among the Tottenham fan base who genuinely think that he's world class. He's not at that level yet, in my opinion. Yes, he's got the World Cup, great. But no, I don't think he's at that level yet, personally, in my opinion. I think he'd still a lot of potential. He frustrates the fuck out of me. His performance in the last quarter of an hour at Southampton 2 weeks ago was disgraceful. It was probably the worst of the lot. He just went to sleep completely. So I'd probably say Christian Romero. Ian from Melbourne says, ever got an injury celebrating a goal? I lost a hot dog when Southampton scored away at Port Vale in 2009. It ended up 2 rows in front inside some bloke's hoodie. Thanks for the content, James. Hit like. I wouldn't say injuries as such. I can tell you I did damage to ankle ligaments getting off a bus after Tottenham beat Arsenal 2-0 in 2017. I was pissed up, weren't I? Literally put my foot down off the bus and just completely gave way and fell over. And the wife was screaming at me in the street, as you do. But actually celebrating a goal, not as much. I remember Ledley King goal against Arsenal. Me and Dad ended up falling into the row in front. No injury. Shins hurt quite a number of times. My shins were at the Etihad in the quarter-final in 2019. I had loads of marks on my shins the next day. It's probably clearing balls as much as celebrating goals because we were under so much pressure. It's probably that. Hurted shins from seats in front at away games quite a lot, I should imagine. No actual injury. Stopped my dad having one at St Mary's 2 weeks ago because we actually had the 2 end seats next to the gangway, and he nearly went down it when Harry scored to make it 2-1. I dragged the bastard back. Similarly in Amsterdam, it was like a domino effect, and I just knew people were going to fall down on top of us. Exactly what happened. The guy ended up in between me and Dad, separating us, but I knew it was coming. I just grabbed the guy for dear life. Escaped injuries largely, Ian. Thanks, Cameron, for the responses. Gary Robinson says, morning, James, no question. Good luck with the unexpected childcare. Hope Harry's okay. Yeah, he's absolutely fine, guys. Honestly, he's doing fine. We're all fine. It's all good. Rhino says, morning, James. Very tempted to keep Son because I like your next 3 fixtures. Are you hopeful we'll pick up form? I mean, I'm hopeful. Would I advise that? No. Honest, I think we'll probably lose the next 2 games. We are obviously capable of winning them. I don't think that this team's necessarily going to have a managerial bounce as others may have. I think it's still a very poisonous vibe around the football club at the moment. As you'll hear if you watch the game Monday night, you'll hear that from the away fans. Brighton at home, game week 30. I mean, if we're not on it, they'll destroy us, mate. Honestly. So I'm not that hopeful about it. It doesn't mean that Sonny, and the same goes for Harry Kane, can't return. I'd still back Harry to return in most games, but with Sonny, you'd have to find some sort of form that he's not shown all season, mate. That's all I can say. Am I hopeful? Yeah. Could he? Yeah, sure. Would I be keeping him? No. Ben Keane says, hi James, hope you're well. Who's the best replacement for Cash? I have double Newcastle defence, triple Brighton, Chilwell, Henry. I also have De Gea in goal. And that's quite interesting because I think that probably makes you not want to go to Manchester United so much, because obviously that will block you off of going Fernandes and Rashford. Depends a little bit on where you're heading, Ben. But one solution for you might be, from a value perspective, it might not look great for this week, but it might fix you up quite nicely for the longer term, is Ibrahima Konate of Liverpool. Another one, obviously, is the West Ham defenders for this week, but then how much do you want to use it further on? They do have the double in 34. You could use Man City away as a bonus, considering Crystal Palace away as the first fixture. So considering what you've got there, which is decent coverage of around kind of popular teams this week, it's probably that. Failing that, of course, Tyrone Mings of Villa is also an option as well, but don't look great beyond game week 30. So it probably depends. Is it a short-term decision or is it a long-term? If it's a really long-term decision, I'd be very tempted by Konate. Shorter term, I think the one right in front of your face that's best, he's actually probably West Ham. So Aguerd or Zuma, for example. Zuma is much cheaper. And if you want something this week and next week, probably preference for Mings, but then not a lot more. So if anything, Mings is maybe even more short-term than a Zuma or Aguerd, actually. So let's say short-term 1 week. I still think 1 week, though, it would still be a West Ham player over Villa. So yeah, it's probably West Ham player or Konate, subject on how long you want it for. There you go. Ollie Blake says, morning, James. For bench push 29 only, which keeper do you think is the one to go for? Ward replacement. 29 only. Yeah, this is... subject to what you've got, I think it would... Top choices would probably be De Gea or Steele. But you might be blocked from both of them. 29 only. If Moyes rules out Fabianski today, which we think he might say he's available, then Areola's very attractive. Failing that, I think your choice probably is Neto or Navas. And take your pick there. I mean, if it's just 1 week, probably slight preference for Navas. If it's any longer, probably Neto. Berticus says, morning, James. Worth a -4 bench boost with a bench of Steele, Martinelli, Kane and Pinnock. Or should I take another -4 to upgrade Pinnock with plenty in the bank? Many thanks. The Rico Henry's going to stay for me. As it stands, it's perfectly reasonable. My expectations on it are low, but again, -4 this week. I'm not predicting a huge number of clean sheets, despite the fact there being 16 games this game week. So I'm not sure there's anything worth doing it unless you're absolutely certain you want something for the longer term, which may be a Manchester United player. I don't know, mate. If I didn't have Gabriel, would I take a -4 from Pinnock to Shaw? I'm not sure I would. Actually. Then would I do it next week? Again, not sure I would, because I'd probably have other things more important. So I would maybe take a similar decision and go, right, yeah, I want to go for it and get it done and fix this over a longer term. Yeah, this should make up the points. So maybe yes for a Luke Shaw. Otherwise, not really so much on selling Pinnock. That as a bench boost, Steele, Martinelli, Kane, Pinnock is perfectly reasonable. Mad Shook says, morning, James. If you can have one of Salah or Bruno for the rest of the season, who you pick? And you're free hitting 32. I picked Bruno Fernandes. And the reason to do that is not necessarily it's Bruno versus Salah. It's a little bit like what I already said. I think there are currently at the moment, there are only 4 Manchester United assets of interest right now. De Gea, Shaw, Fernandes and Rashford. Whereas with Liverpool, I think there are alternatives. So the 2 fullbacks obviously seem very expensive at the moment. Trent, Robertson, but I think for doubles coming up, maybe not this one, but further down the line, potential good upside. I think Alisson is reasonable. I've mentioned Konate. Obviously Darwin Núñez. Luis Diaz is back in training. Diogo Jota might even be an option as well. So I feel like there's more alternatives that may be of interest at Liverpool than Manchester United. And therefore, the answer to the question I'm going to say is Bruno Fernandes. However, what you need to consider before you make that decision is how often do you think you'll captain Mo Salah during this period? Because you're saying for the rest of the season, right? So if you look ahead and you go, well, I'm going to captain Mo Salah 4 times, for example, then the right answer is Salah. Really is. Because as I discussed with Tom Campbell yesterday, I wouldn't make the case to captain Bruno Fernandes over Marcus Rashford very often, if at all. Now, situation might change. Say if Rashford gets injured, Fernandes might become more interesting. But actually, even still, when I look ahead to the fixtures, probably wouldn't captain Bruno Fernandes at all. So captaincy has to come into your thinking. So if you truly think you're going to need Mo Salah for captaincy quite a bit, that's your answer still. Because he would still be the best overall asset from Liverpool. So captaincy will probably affect your final decision. The truly right answer, Madge, is I'm probably looking towards having both, mate. Javier Grajdan says, hi James, should I take another hit for Saka to Maddison? Already -8 planned. So you're talking going up to -12. It's probably a no from me. I think -12's pushing limits, personally. I'm never keen on -12s, and I know they can work for people. I've seen people do -20s and have unbelievable positive weeks immediately. But the bigger those hits are, the less likely it is. I'm gonna say no. On the face of it, as just a basic -4, yeah, I don't mind it. And again, I would justify it a little bit like with Fernandes on the fixtures to come as well. Although you may have one less with Maddison. Unlike with Fernandes, you could look at 31 and say Saka's 31 is definitely better than Maddison. So actually, he's quite close over the course of the next 3 weeks specifically. So could you come back for Maddison? Will you want to come back for Maddison if you're aiming towards a core of, say, let's just say March, Mitoma, Rashford, Fernandes, Salah for 34. So it's much closer. Much closer. If it was me, I'd do it. But I don't necessarily think that's the right answer. Let me put it like that. Tom Johnson says, morning James, what are your thoughts on the McTominay links to Newcastle? I think he's a player who probably suffers a little bit from being British. I'm not sure if people would be so critical of him if he'd been an overseas signing, actually. Excellent work rate. I think technically has scope to improve, but is better than given credit. I think he can play multiple different midfield roles. They are all central midfield roles, but can he play as a sitting 6 in a team that's heavily ball dominant? Yes, I think he could. Can he play as a box-to-box midfielder? Yes. Can he play advanced? Yes. So he's a player that's got multi-uses. I think that makes him quite attractive. I think he'd be of the higher energy mentality that Newcastle were looking for in their midfielders. Yeah, I mean, I also think Manchester United have every reason to think that they're probably looking for an upgrade on him. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a move that probably works for everybody. Yeah, I'm not against it as some others have been. I know there's a few Newcastle fans turn their nose up to it a little bit, but yeah, I don't hate that as a move. Newcastle certainly need better depth, and I think Newcastle are right to have a consciousness about continuing to invest in British while they're on the descent of progress, right? McTominay's still of a good age profile where you can make money back on the investment potentially. So yeah, I think it's reasonable. Darmin Marola says, hey James, hope you're doing well. What is your top 4 and bottom 3 prediction for this season? Arsenal, City, United, Manchester. I think Liverpool will pip Newcastle to 4th. Bottom 3, Southampton. I think Forest is such a big week. I think if it doesn't go well, I think they're going to go. And I think the final one, I'm gonna say close between Bournemouth and Everton, who play each other in game at 38. Ironically, at Goodison Park. Bournemouth's fixture run, they've got a brilliant little sort of like 32 to 34. Bournemouth's fixtures are better, but I've kind of got a bit more faith in Sean Dyche to get positive results for Everton. Like I think there's every chance they'll win on Monday, for example. Yeah, I'm going to say Bournemouth just I know most people definitely think Bournemouth. I'm not so sure, actually. I think they might be all right. Ali Bismo says, hi James, would you bring in Salah for Saka for -8? Also need to downgrade Kane for funding Salah, or just get Maddison for -4 and be done with it. Getting Salah now saves the transfer later for game week 34. Yeah, understand that as kind of covered about that kind of ideal midfield 5 for game week 34. I can understand that. I guess the answer, I don't know, Ali. What are you downgrading Kane to, right? Is quite important. And do you need it this week? Like, downgraded Kane to Greenwood and you're not bench boosting, for example, for further down the line. Yeah, cool. Great stuff. But you need it this week, so what are you moving it to? And again, do you need Kane for that captaincy in game week 31? You might. I don't know the answer to that. I'd probably make the Maddison move, personally. Billy Nomad says Iheanacho is still a good option, right? Well, it's kind of covered. Like, I wouldn't buy as new, but the reality is he didn't start at Brentford. I don't know where I stand. And it didn't surprise me, by the way, that he didn't start at Brentford. I expected that going into 28. I don't know the answer, Billy, but I'm also not going to move it on at this stage unless Rodgers gives me clear indication to believe I have to today. Alex MJ87 says, for Luke Shaw, would you sell Gabriel or me for free? I'm on free hit 32. Even still, I'm thinking keep Gabriel this week. How often would you play him? I realise, don't get me wrong, right? Arsenal could keep clean sheets at Anfield, at West Ham, at Man City, like they could, right? Been the best team in the league. But how often are you actually using him? In 34, you'd make the case that me at home to Forest, it's fine. Yeah, personally, I would sell Gabriel. Would be my take. Dread FPL says, morning, mate. Hope you and the family are well. Weird dilemma here. I'm no longer bench boosting. Have to bench one of Saka or Kane. Which one? I would never tell anyone to bench Harry Kane, but you will see him on the bench in Dilemmas tomorrow on the deadline stream, and he will be below Bukayo Saka on that. There you go. Let me say that. I think that would be the decision based on my predictions for the 2 games this week. And that's it. But benching Harry Kane, yeah, at your peril. You know, mate. Colin Johnson says, morning, James. Hope you good, fella. Love the content. Mustard. Doing bench boost. Odegaard to Bruno. Zinchenko to Shaw. Free hit 32. Would you do me to Chilwell for -4 as well this week? Me to Chilwell. Yes, I probably would. I should add the caveat to that is I'm not backing Chelsea for a clean sheet in either game this week. But you've got the upside of the attacking stuff with Chilwell as well. So I'd probably chance that, yes. The other moves, fine, very similar to what I'm doing myself. All Stars Club says Odegaard, Saka, Zinchenko to Bruno, Maddison captain, and Shaw -8. Now, if you want to go Maddison captain, that gives it far more justification. So I'm going to say yes again. But, guys, I must stress that I'm always going to favour the doubler quite a lot. It's just my play style. The Arsenal guys really could go off this week. And I don't, I'm selling Saka. I think Saka returns this week. I really do. I'd expect Saka to probably get 7 or 8 this week. Hey guys, just an average prediction. Am I truly thinking that Bruno Fernandes outscores this week? Not overly. I think it'll be close. But I think if I don't take that -4 this week, I'll be taking it next week anyway. That's my take. Chersbomb says, screw FPL. What is going on with our club, mate? No head coach for either man or women team. No director of football. No apparent direction from above. Spurs crumbling. As I said, to those who are perhaps less in the know, the vibe around the football club is still absolutely on the floor. And you should be aware of that with Kane and other assets at the moment. Kane is so single-minded in his belief and his trust in his own ability, it's less of a problem. But other players, like Sonny's, it's basically sulks most of the season, to be honest. Now, it's not to say he hasn't worked hard, but it's just nothing like the player that played for us 12 months ago and became a genuine Footballer of the Year contender. And obviously went on to win a Golden Boot. So, yeah, it's on the floor at the moment, mate. Yeah, no manager for either the men's or women's team. a director of football or who's been suspended worldwide, or let's should say not suspended, banned worldwide from football operations, so he can't even do his job at the moment, and the club have decided not to suspend him. Yeah, all the noises from the research we've done suggest that the Juventus situation is probably worse than the 15-point deduction handed out so far, and there could be further repercussions to come. Paratici is right at the centre of it, so I think the ban is probably going to stick. Why Tottenham are continuing to associate themselves with him and drag the name of the football club through the mud over these next couple of weeks, I honestly could not tell you, other than, as I explained a little bit on the Patreon podcast we did on Wednesday, before that news had broken on Wednesday night, people think Daniel Levy wants to be hands-on. He doesn't anymore. He doesn't. He wants someone else to do all the football stuff that Paratici have been doing. Now, he can't at the moment. Tottenham have someone else in place who'll probably take up the role. It's Greta Steinson, I think, who was formerly at Everton, which in itself is possibly a concern, but does have a decent reputation within football, and he'll probably end up taking over the job. So I imagine his involvement will probably become a little bit stronger over these next couple of weeks. You might hear more about his name and stuff. But yeah, it's an absolute mess. They can't sort out the manager position, so they know what's happening with that. Daniel Levy promised me and other Tottenham fans and us in the summer of 2021 that Tottenham had forgotten who they were and needed to go back to finding their DNA. And 2 years on, it's in a worse position than it was 2 years ago. So, have to get back to giving the football fans something they'll enjoy and can get behind and feel proud of before anything else even matters about trophies and all this stuff. Fuck all that shit, right? I need to go back to going to Tottenham and enjoying it again and have belief in what I'm watching. And belief doesn't necessarily mean having to win trophies. It means having a belief that I can turn up and know I've got a team to support. That's it. That's got to happen before anything else. They've got to get their head out the sand about, we need a manager now who's going to win this, that and the other. The squad needs a whole overhaul. It needs a longer term vision. Ollie Rose says Marshall McAllister. I covered that already, Ollie, so largely skip. I mean, it's about timing, and if the timing of signing is this way, I'm going to say March. Divesh says gone double Leicester with Barnes and Maddison for Odegaard and Saka, and already have McAllister, Ferguson and Tony along with Salah and Rashford. Defence is Chilwell, Trips, Estupinan, Kepa. Thoughts? Great, mate. Great. Like, whenever anyone in the chat puts their whole team, I'm just going to carry on, mate. Like, it's too much, mate. Thank you. Good luck. Static says, hi, James. Hope you're well. Is it worth bringing in Bruno to bench Kane? Most probably for a hit. Free hit 32, wildcard 33, bench boost 34. I'm going to say no. You want Bruno to outscore Harry Kane this week by more than 4 specifically for this week. Okay, because you mentioned about benching Harry Kane. Nah. I think no, probably, mate. Rami says top 4 prediction. Also thoughts on triple Brighton midfield. Appreciate I've done the top 4 prediction. Triple Brighton midfield, I've said a number of times, I'm not massively keen on it. And it's not about not keen on them. They're all great assets. It's what I said about come 34. If you want a template, that template is probably going to be Salah, Rashford, Fernandes plus 2 Brighton. And the Brighton players are going to be very difficult to sell unless one gets injured. Like, how do you even choose which one to sell? It's right saying choosing which one to buy. Which one do you even choose to sell? Christ. And obviously you can stay with that, but you may find yourself being put in a position where you end up with not being able to get Mo Salah, for example. That's it. It's just a consciousness to the bigger picture. You might have decided, I absolutely don't want Bruno Fernandes no matter what. Fine. Crack on. But, you're also missing out on other potential assets like Maddison, going back to those Arsenal assets if you decide you wanted to, for example. And obviously other assets could suddenly evolve to become options. And I'm sure they will. The likes of perhaps Rodrigo at Leeds, Luis Diaz maybe even at Liverpool. Wilfred Zaha, yeah, you can laugh at the back at Crystal Palace, got great run of fixtures. I'd be conscious of the 3, and therefore I'd rather have a defensive 1 and 2. Heather says, morning James, hope all is good with you. What's your take on Haaland and Rashford being flagged and playing this game week? I had planned to bench boost, but without them I won't, as I don't want to sell them. I can only cover very briefly, Heather. what I've already covered, which I'll just repeat for those who may be joining later on the stream. I think with Rashford, you'll probably find that he's fine and no issue. Haaland, the big news comes today, right? If pressed to say right now, there's every chance he doesn't play, but the information that will come out today from photos, listen, it's Erling Haaland. You're going to know today if he trains with the rest of the squad or doesn't. If he doesn't train with the rest of the squad, I find it unlikely that he'll start. So that information today is really important. The information we have currently is that he didn't yesterday. If he does today, he'll play. If he doesn't, chances are he won't. It's as cut and dry as that for me. Also, bear in mind, guys, tomorrow is April the 1st, which means there will be a lot of people thinking they're funny and lies and stuff going around on social media tomorrow. Know which sources you can trust. Personally, I trust Ketchup. Right, Shani Russell says, Big James, the main man, how are you, sir? Bench boost this week, so worth a -8 for Ward, Zinchenko, Odegaard to De Gea, Shaw and March. Not feeling Bruno, free hitting 34. Free hitting 34, that's interesting. That puts a slightly different slant on it. I don't mind free hitting 34. The only thing is you probably want very similar players in 37 to 34. That's all. And it might be if United progress in Europe and City end up doubling in 36 rather than 37 that's not the case. But the chances are it probably will be. But yeah, it's okay. It's fine. All right, we'll end on this one. Ramiz says, actually, Shami Russell said I meant 32. Okay, cool. Yeah, so... yeah, I was going to say with 34 doesn't make as much sense. 32, yeah, I'm okay with that. Crack on, mate. Ramiz says also, how do I do super chat on this channel? There isn't one at the moment, mate. I'll either get to your question or I won't, and that's the last question I'm going to cover because I need to go and look after my son now. Don't do super chat here at the moment. It's not to say I never will, but if you want to support the show, www.patreon.com/planetfpl. I, however, probably recommend you wait till tomorrow, April 1st. Actually, tell you what, if anybody supports us on Patreon today, I'll refund it today. And I'm refunding it because you'll get charged again tomorrow, basically. So I'll refund one of the 2 payments if you want to support us today on Patreon. www.patreon.com/planetfpl. There'll be over 20 additional podcasts from intermediate tier in April. You can come and join our Slack community, get access to my spreadsheet planner from basic tier. And if you want all the warts and all stuff and extra video content, advanced tier will be the one for you. That's patreon.com/planetfpl if you'd like to support the show. Otherwise, deadline stream for those here on YouTube, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I may be looking after Harry at the same time, but at the moment, I think there's every chance that the missus probably will be here, so I probably will be able to give it my full attention, but it is a possibility I may have to do it while looking after Harry at the same time, which will be okay if that's what has to happen. Benny Banco will be joining me on Monday for the Game Week Review podcast. Other than that, just leaves me to say, play it your way as ever. Hope your arrows are green for this weekend, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, cue music please, man child.